Hi, this is the fifth reactor blocks exploration. Today we'd like to look at something pretty vanilla from a general standpoint. What we've been doing is we've been kind of walking through the basics of synthesizer development from a typical subtractive approach. So you have an oscillator, then you have a filter that's affected by an envelope. The signal from that goes into a voltage controlled amplifier that's also got its own envelope. And each one kind of takes sound away based on the envelope shape. So that's actually the sound that kind of created modern synthesis. If you listen to pretty much any synthesizer from the early 70s, late 60s through until we got to the 80s, that's probably the sound. I mean, you had samplers that came out, and you had organs, and you had tapes. You had other things that created synthesis. I mean, you had other things, but by and large, subtractive synthesis through the Moogs and the Buchlas and ARPs and things like that, this was all subtractive. It was all the same basic idea with lots and lots of different types of filters and different features and modifications that would go into it, but they're all pretty much the same idea. So once you have that idea down, you can pretty much create anything that's based on that. We've also added clock signals and gates so that we can actually create sequencers and regular triggers of things. This time I wanted to kind of revisit our earliest ideas and kind of work on creating some different sounds, just basic different subtractive sounds. What I have here, we can get rid of this one because this isn't necessary. What we have here is a pretty much bog standard two-oscillator, two envelope, got a filter and a VCA, pretty much the same thing we've seen. Astute observers will notice we've got an extra envelope and some other things going on down here. And we'll kind of get to that, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to add a different oscillator to kind of get a different feel for the sound. So first off, let's take a listen to what our basic two-oscillator thing sounds like. And it's all very exciting. We've kind of got a long decay on there, so it lasts for a while. Let's add a little bit of reverb to it. Again, all kind of exciting, and you'll kind of notice this Kodiak over here that's doing something. We don't hear it here because I've got the mix turned all the way down. So here's where the fun comes in. For one thing, the VCA, the reverb, is just going from the VCA to a rounds reverb and then to out. So there's nothing spectacular there, but it adds a lot to the sound. And we can kind of increase the size. And it creates a really big sound, kind of that arena rock vibe to it. So that's always exciting. But what I actually wanted to kind of focus on was this beast right here. We actually added another oscillator. So we hook this in the exact same way we do everything else. We have a pitch that goes to the pitch. We connect the out to our mixer. And what I also wanted to do is I wanted to kind of introduce another envelope to control what the thing actually did. So I put this envelope right here in there, so it's hooked to the gate. I actually hooked that one envelope to 3 output sources, and this is kind of where the modular side of Reaktor kind of comes into the fore, even with something as simple as blocks. The output from the envelope generator goes to a mod A and mod B on the duality oscillator. It also goes to the mod A on the mixer. So what we have here is we have the envelope is going to invert the signal. So whenever we hit the note, it's actually going to introduce, because normally the envelope increases in sound and then decreases, but because we're inverting it, because we have this going down, what it actually means is it's going to decrease it and then bring it back up based on the attack. So what this is telling us is that based on the mixer, whenever we hit the note, we want to introduce the duality slowly rather than quickly. And we could do that with a slow attack rather than inverting the signal, but I wanted to kind of play with different sounds. So what we also do is we hook mod A and mod B up to the duality, and what we have there, if we look here, mod A controls the timbre, which means this waveform right here, which is the oscillator being generated, it's going to sweep that. We also have, on the B mod, we have the pulse modulation, the phase modulation being affected. So what that means is, whenever we hit a note, it's going to trigger that envelope, it's going to sweep the timbre, and it's going to sweep the the phase modulation, and it's going to introduce the volume slowly. So it creates this really weird, big sound. Let's try it. Now we have the sound a little bit low there, so it's actually kind of a little bit hard to hear. Now there are a couple of different ways to do this. We could do it with a simple filter and have the resonance turned up fairly high. That kind of gives you that Tom Sawyer sound. But here we're actually doing it with without using the subtractive itself. We're actually using the oscillator itself to create the sound. And because we can feed that into other things, we can actually create incredibly complicated sound sources without a whole lot of work, and we create something that's really fascinating from a sound creation standpoint. Kind of make this growly bass sound that I don't really know yet where it would fit, but it sounds kind of cool, and that's kind of the whole point, is to create something using sound sources that are really predictable and create something that sounds really awesome for us to use. So okay, that's this episode. Thanks.